Welcome to the Paperclip Podcast, presented by BSDA. We have one clear goal: help you to become bigger. I'm your host, Brett Stone, and this is Season 2, Episode 9. And I just want to say a quick thank you to the Paperclip Podcast family for obviously tuning in either on the podcast audio or on Facebook or YouTube, watching the video. Obviously, I appreciate your time and hope that you enjoy the episode. Today, I have a really exciting guest. I've been trying to get Peter on the show for a little while now, and he's been on my he's like my white rhino. I'm very excited to have Peter White from Management Solutions here today as our guest. How are you, Peter?
I'm very well, thank you. What about you, Brett?
Yeah, great, thank you. Very much.
Good.
Today, I'm excited to hear some of your answers to these questions. So,
I hope I can deliver the answers that you're after.
So, always love starting with, what was your very first job as a kid?
As a kid, my very first job when I was 11 or 12 was a paperboy. And at those days, we did it on a bike. There was no wrapped papers. They were all just delivered flat, and we had to fold each one to put in the paper holder. And that was a 6-day-a-week gig. And so that was my start, getting up at 5:30 in the morning, and in half an hour or an hour, it was rain, hail or shine, we had to deliver papers 6 days a week. And all of a sudden it became 7 days a week. So that's how old I am. Papers weren't always 7 days a week. So that was my first start of a gig at the age of 11 or 12. I can't remember. We were actually in year 7. And at the time, myself and my brother went up to the local news agency and we said, we're available to do some work. And we both got employed the same day. So that was good. So but that was a long time ago. That was back in 1977. Give you some idea of my years.
Okay. And do you remember what you were getting paid then?
Initially, it was about $10 or $11 a week.
Yep.
I think in the final years, it was about $20 a week. But I'd been working with the news agent for about 17 years. After finishing school, I actually worked in the shop as a sales assistant. Once I was doing, that was a part-time gig, whilst I was doing a full-time gig working for the bank.
Beautiful. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you learn the skills required to get into being a business coach?
Well, it's been one of those things that it's amazing what you can learn along the way. Every job you're in is a learning opportunity for the next opportunity that you want to take on board. And I spent 20 odd years in the bank, going from just batches, which is processing checks and things like that in the back office, to then counter work, being a teller, opening accounts, and then personal lending, right through to commercial lending. So I did 21 years with the National Bank. My last few years were in Dandenong as a commercial finance person, so dealing with small businesses. And at the time, my young children, well, my boys were born at a significantly early period at 25 weeks gestation. So we spent 3 months in intensive care, another 3 months in hospital to get them home. But in that time that I went back to work after I had a number of months off, I spent my lunch times learning about business. I was dealing with business from a finance point of view, but I wanted to know how businesses tick, because many of them were coming in asking for finance and say, well, if the business doesn't work, we can always sell the family home. And that wasn't really a philosophy I appreciated. Hang on, we were there, we wanted to make business stronger. And so I was torn. I was actually trying to provide business advice and also commercial finance to support the bank and the customer's needs. And there was a big disconnect between what the owners of businesses knew about their business. Okay, we all have to deal with profit and loss and balance sheet, cash flow statements, but most of them didn't really understand that, and they didn't want to go and see their accountant for advice. And when business is all about opportunities, and some people don't see the opportunity and they get their advice from their accountant. And as we know that sometimes the accountant's advice is really limited from a financial point of view, and they're a mediator between the business and the ATO, the tax office. So I'd spend my lunch times getting out of the bank, go for lunch and I'll have a coffee, and I would learn about business. And so for nearly 3 years, I read books in my lunch hour. I just left the phone on the table, went and got some knowledge. And that's how I transitioned from being in business, trying to provide solutions as a business advisor or a finance person to a small business, to asking them different questions. And many of them couldn't answer the questions. And some of those things that probably, Brett, you and I have had those conversations about, sometimes I ask questions that business owners can't answer. And it's not that they can't answer them, they just haven't thought about them deeply enough and the impact to a small business. So I've been doing what I've been doing for nearly 15 years now, and I love it. I see the value that people can get out of this to take their business to a different place.
Absolutely. I can certainly vouch for that. And given that you're now sort of working for yourself, and it's very much a singular thing, you're working on your own and you work with business owners, and then in the past you worked alongside other people, what are some of the differences that you've noticed in the differences between working with other people versus kind of going it alone?
With the bank, I worked with a small team. I had a lending officer that I worked with, but we were also part of a bigger team where there were many other relationship managers that I was. So we had, I think, 8 or 9 relationship managers. So when I left work, that was a thing that I was going to miss the most. I'm a people person. I like to be with people, help people along the way. So when I left work, I didn't have that family to go to, being a business place to go to. So I'd come start my own business. I had to find a bit of a family to participate with, and I found BNI.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I started in BNI nearly 13 years ago.
Right.
And I just have attended a weekly meeting at BNI for that period of time, and I love it.
Yeah, and
so that gives me the family that I didn't have in the bank. I can go and talk to these people, whether I get business or not. It's just a place that I can go and talk to other proactive business owners.
Absolutely. And what made you want to work for yourself?
Lifestyle. Okay. Given that when I was working in the bank, most employees work 30 to 40 hours a week. When you're on a fixed salary, often you did 50 to 60 hours a week. So when my boys were born and the challenges that they had from a health point of view when we brought them home from hospital, one came home with requiring oxygen, and he required oxygen for support for 12 months. One of the other twin, he required tube feeding for 6 years. So it was a big drain on my wife to be able to do that day in and day out whilst I'm doing 60 or 70 hours at the bank. So I chose to leave the bank and work from home, and we both now work to a degree part-time. And this is all about lifestyle. Boys are now 18, the twins are 18, and my youngest one is 15. I want to be able to give them a way better future than what their initial future was going to look like when we came home from hospital. The doctors were dealing with their challenges day by day. What we were doing today may have a short-term effect to keep them alive, but may have a long-term challenge from a medical point of view. So the boys are fine now, and at the age of 18, I can see them growing into young adults and be really independent, which was a far different situation than they could have had when we brought them home from hospital.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And what are some of the things or what's the best way to sum up what you do at Management Solutions?
I have conversations with business owners about how they approach things within their business. Okay, businesses need to make money. They need to pay taxes. Unfortunately, some business owners choose to avoid paying taxes, so they don't grow their business because there's this mentality: if I earn too much, I have to pay too much in tax. Paying tax is a good thing. So when we have a conversation, it's just about asking questions, and we delve down into the why people do things the way they do them. I'm not saying what they do is right or wrong. It's just a matter of finding out the psychology as to why they do things. Is that the best way to do things in business? And often, just through the conversation, is they find out that there's a better way to do things. And I don't have all the answers. I don't have the crystal ball sitting on the table to provide the solutions, but it's a conversation. So if I ask a question, is that the best way to approach something? Well, I never thought I could do it in a different fashion. Okay, well, we test and measure things. So if you do it differently, is the outcome going to be different to a better situation? And then we say, okay, so if we're doing a marketing piece, for instance, excuse me, if you change too many things in a marketing piece, you don't know what one thing is the silver bullet that makes the approach. So if you're doing a marketing piece or a system piece, where is that silver bullet that makes the big difference in conversion rates or improvement in a process? And the business is about process.
Absolutely. Yep. I know as being a marketing professional myself, one of the things that we always talk to clients about is if we're making changes throughout the course of a campaign, it's important to change one thing at a time so that we know what's working and what's not.
Absolutely.
And
so if you change 10 things, you don't know which one of those 10 things works. It could be that 9 things don't work and the one thing does.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thinking back to the early days of when you very first started Management Solutions, what were some of the things that you did, or what's one thing that kind of stands out that you did where you noticed that sort of going from just being an idea to becoming a business?
One thing, okay, initially when I left the bank, I took 6 months off, and that was part of the process with the children. I knew that I had a bit of a financial backstop. I took a package. I had a payout from the bank because I've been working there for 21 years. I didn't need to find any work day one. I knew that if I could just hold out for 12 months, if I didn't get any business for 12 months, I was going to be okay. Initially, I started walking the streets, just knocking on doors of business owners, okay, cold calling. Some people say that is hard yakka. It is hard yakka. Strangely enough, I actually walked into an accountant's office who was a client of the bank. I didn't know where he was. He wasn't my client. He just happened to be a client of the National Bank. And I knew that when I was filling in for somebody else on their business portfolio. I walked in, had a conversation, and he was one of my first ever clients. A 65-year-old accountant who said, oh, well, you can't teach me anything. Well, maybe there are things that I can teach. Okay, we gave him an opportunity, and he had a younger business partner. It was really the younger business partner that really embraced the changes. But we transformed that business. Income went through the roof. Staffing went up. Their systems improved. And we gave this 65-year-old 4 months off work so he could have his operation. That was never going to be possible the way he was running it 6 months before I took over or worked with him. But as I say, that was just an out of the blue. I was walking down the street of the local shopping strip, and it was a client that I connected with, and he took on my services. So it's now 12 and a half years ago.
And I can certainly, obviously a great outcome. I can certainly relate to the cold calling. One of my very first jobs in the call center business that I spent about 16 years in was cold calling regional areas of Australia, trying to sell them pay TV. At the time, it was Odyssey. And you're speaking to people that you don't have anything to show them, you don't have anything to get them excited about other than what you say and what you're listening to. So in those days, I can certainly say that the thing that I learned most was that old adage of, the reason you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth is so that you can listen twice as much as you talk. And I'd be listening in the background, hearing the television on. I can hear football on the TV. Okay, great. So they watch football. Now I can talk to them about the XL package and how that will give them the opportunity to play games. Or I can hear kids that are obviously a young age in the background. Great. So do you know that, how much do you spend on hiring movies each week? $15. Wow. Okay. So this is $12 a week, and you get Disney and Nickelodeon for that every day. Just using those skills to listen and take advantage of that to be able to present something useful to customers. Really powerful tool.
I do a lot of listening, don't I, Brett?
That's true.
I ask a thought-provoking question, and then I just sit and wait for the answer. And I just make some acknowledgements. Yes, yeah, thank you. Keep going. Tell me more. I don't fully understand your process, but tell me more. And okay, are you happy with that? Oh, no, I'm not happy with that. Well, maybe there's a better way to do it. Have you considered X, Y, Z? Okay, well, let's try X, Y, Z and see what happens. So it's about, and like what you said, you don't, it's really hard to sell something that you don't have any end picture for. We just have to find out what their pain points are and say, is there a better way to do this? Are you happy with what you're doing? Or how do we get you to a better place? And that better place could be in any number of areas. People are generally unhappy with a scenario, whether it be a money point of view, is how many hours they work point of view, or how much they work compared to their staff. So if we can focus on 1, 2, or 3 of those, the end result is drastically different. But it's a process. I don't have the magic wand. I'm not Harry Potter. I can't just wave and it'll be better tomorrow.
And having said all of that, what's something that excites you about management solutions?
Excites me about, I love seeing the results that people get in their businesses just by doing things differently. Unfortunately, so many people are in business and they do it really, really hard. It becomes easier when you have more knowledge. And people say, yeah, well, I haven't picked up a book or I haven't learned anything really since I left school. And that leaving school might be 5 years ago, might be 25 years ago. Okay, it's about getting knowledge. There is so much knowledge available, whether it be Dr. Google, books, podcasts and things like that. It's about getting the right knowledge at the right point in time to make some changes in a business. And as I say, all I'm doing is a resource provider. Okay, I don't necessarily need to provide the resources. Where do we need to go and search that information so we can do it better? And it might be we break things down. People say, oh yeah, I've got this process in business. Is it the right process? Is there a bottleneck somewhere? Is there a better way to do it? And we start breaking things down into nth degree details. How do we change one thing which might actually give you better results? And I don't do it for people. I just facilitate them doing it for them. And we don't work on 20 things in a week. We work on one thing a week, which is manageable. But if people don't do things, they just have the same tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And so I love growth in people.
And along the journey, especially in the early days, as business owners, we all have personal challenges. Starting a business or running a business, especially in the early days, can be very taxing on things like relationships, friendships, sleep, money, these kind of things. Is there a particular story or something that you can tell us about that you went through when you were sort of in your early days?
Probably I'm a financial guy. I like money, but it's not about what money can do. It's about the choices that money allows you to have. Okay, we made some really tough calls early in the piece, especially before the boys were born. I started investing in the stock market. About 3 months before the boys were born, we put $250,000 into the share market. And the first 3 months, that just went south. That hurt. Okay, we've come through it. We're now 18 years on and things are looking okay. The biggest thing is probably communication between myself and my wife. Okay, and I keep a lot of things to myself because she's got challenges in her world, and I keep them, and she hates it because I don't tell her enough about what's going on. You're smiling there, Brett. You've had those sort of conversations, maybe.
Yep.
But as a business owner, most owners, there's a level of pride what goes on in their business, and it's about how we can help them undertake things that are different. And again, women are vastly different from men. Their security is about a roof over their head, food on the table and things like that for the family. Blokes are a little bit more blasé on those sort of things. It's about getting the balance right and a level of communication right. And that's a journey that everybody has to go on. You can tough it out, you can bang your head against the wall, and often when we talk to business owners about their business, and I can see from conversation that there's a train wreck about to occur in the business, I ask, how's the family business? Because everybody has a family. What's going on in the family as well? Because you've got income, money going into the family business, you've got expenses, rent, mortgage, gas, electricity, family, food, and that sort of thing. What's going on at home? So every business owner has two businesses going on. And they don't sort of look at it that way. The family is potentially staff. Who does what by when at home versus who does what by when in their business. And often it's about getting an understanding around those things to make things better.
Yeah, and I can, as you picked up, what you were talking about around, talking and communication. And the first thing you said about, keeping that kind of stuff to yourself, that for me, that was very relatable. I've up until, only a couple of months ago, I'd been single for 5 or 6 years, and I was kind of used to that. I was used to being the strong, silent type, keeping those things to myself,
Mm-hmm.
maintaining that that stability and positive energy for those around me, especially my daughter, to make sure that she can see, somebody that's got it together, someone that knows what's happening, someone that has control of the situation, that looks and feels reliable. And then in a new relationship now, there's these questions around, what are you thinking? Share that with me. What we can talk about those things.
Mm-hmm.
They're all things that I had forgotten were part of an important relationship and are now coming back to me. So I think I can certainly relate to that in the sense that these things are sort of new for me again now, and finding that transition of keeping it all to myself and just sort of, carrying that burden around all the time versus now having somebody to talk about with those things on a very everyday kind of basis is certainly helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And part of about the communication is there's got to be things that business owners, whether it be partners or families, is about having family time and me time. In other words, everybody needs to. So if you're involved in a relationship where everybody needs to know exactly what the other person's doing, that can be detrimental. You're allowed to have your own pursuits that are different from your partner's pursuits, and likewise in business. The real challenge we find in business is they're set up between a husband and wife or two partners, and they think that 50-50 is the right way to make decisions. No, there needs to be a 51-49% shareholding discussion point. Who's going to make the right decision? Somebody's got to make a decision, because if you're both sitting on the fence, not making a decision is making a decision to do nothing. And that's not helpful. So it's about getting the right decisions being made for the right reasons.
Yep.
So communication is really important.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking about communication, how important is it for you to be around other business owners?
Very important. As I said earlier, I'm a people person. I love to be involved or helping other people get where they want to go. It's not necessarily where I want to go. It's about where they want to go. And sometimes my vision for a business is radically different from the business owner's vision. So sometimes I've got to water down my approach, and only because it's got to be their choices. And we had a brief conversation yesterday, Brett. I can't make your decisions for you, can I?
No, not at all.
But we've got to facilitate better choices. And that would have come up 2 or 3 times in conversations yesterday. It's about empowering people so they can make their own decisions for the right reasons. And I had a conversation with somebody earlier in the week. Aren't you going to make that decision for me? And I've had that often. Please come and talk to my staff. I said, no, I don't come and talk to your staff. I need to help you understand how you can talk to your staff better for a better outcome. Because if I give the knowledge to the staff, often the staff up and leave and you've missed that opportunity. So I teach the business owner how they can engage with their staff better. But no, it's really important that I'm around people all of the time. But I like my own time too. And my own time, I was out having a bike ride this morning, went for a walk the other day. I've got to have my chill time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know one of the things that that my mum always talked about with her husband was, we have time apart so that we can have time together. He would go and practice and perform with the band that he was part of, and my mum would have pottery and family genealogy research that she would do. And they had these things so that when they came together at dinner, at night, for breakfast, whatever it was, they could have things to talk about together.
Oh, that's so important. Early in the piece, I had my sailing. My wife didn't enjoy sailing at all, but it was something that was a passion of mine. And every time I get the opportunity to go sailing now, I jump it with her and take on that opportunity. Doesn't happen as often because nobody else in the family is that interested in it, unfortunately. But when my 3 boys are in their teenage years, we do a lot of driving around for their activities. So it's about having a strong family relationship.
And if you had to do all of this again, knowing what you know now, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? Probably I wouldn't have waited such a long time. And I go back very early when I was working in the news agency, and I'm talking when I was in my early 20s. I had the opportunity to buy into that news agency and I let it go. And in fact, sometimes we make the wrong choices, but we've got to live by the choices we make. So I would have gone into a self-employed type scenario or owning business way earlier than I did. So I think I was nearly 40 when I took on self-employment. But I haven't looked back. I just enjoy it because it's so flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking about all the different people that you've worked with or that you've worked alongside, what's the best advice that you feel like you were ever given?
Get more knowledge, learn. I probably didn't do enough learning in my school years, teenage years, and I'm a bloke. Going to school wasn't high on the priorities, but getting engaged in learning as early as you can. Every opportunity you're in is a learning opportunity. So there's positives and negatives out of everything. Take everything, whether it be positive, whether it be negative, as a learning experience. So for young kids, I'm teaching my boys about share investing, business. They're both doing business management at the moment. They're reading books, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. Get education. There is so much to be learned And some of you may or may not use, but there is so much available to use, just people don't learn because they're so wrapped up in their day-to-day. And the TV or the internet is so busy as a distraction. Facebook can be a good platform, can be a big waste of time for a lot of people. And it's about setting time limits on stuff.
Absolutely. And I think smartphones are actually very good, especially I know I use an iPhone. They're very good at now, especially being able to set limits on particular apps every day. So if you know that you love using Facebook or you love using TikTok or whatever it is, but you don't want to spend more than 30 minutes a day, well, you just set up for that, and then you can't use it anymore.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. So it's available on the iPhone platform, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. A question that I ask people, business clients and my children, what is the best use of your time right now? So every minute of every day, is this the best use of my time right now? So if you're watching television or if you're going for a walk or whatever, but you need to do, everybody needs to do everything, but how do we limit those things? And often when I'm talking to a client about processes and things, okay, a sales process, for instance, how do we get done in 55 minutes what could be done in 60? We don't want superstars. Okay, how do we shave 5 minutes off a process to make it better for all concerned? Whether that's a customer interfacing process or it's a team interfacing process or a system, how do we make it 5 minutes less? 1% better each week is over 50% over a course of a year. How do we just get percentage of improvement all of the time?
Yeah. And shifting gears slightly to advertising and sort of marketing type questions, how did you go about getting your very first customer? I know you mentioned the one before about, just walking the streets and the old pressing the flesh and just meeting people.
My very first client was a BNI member. And I go back, I walked into the BNI room. I didn't know what I was in for. Somebody had indicated that it was a great way to network. And that was a long time, 13 years ago, 14 years ago. 7 o'clock in the morning, Frankston International Motel was the Frankston chapter that I joined. But I went there. I joined with the expectation I was going to get nothing for 12 months. No income, not a referral, not an opportunity, nothing for 12 months. My reality was radically different. And that's where we have to manage expectations. Okay, my first client came within 6 weeks. So within that first few months, I had paid my membership and my meeting fees for the year. It was a positive way to generate business out of my business. It got me in front of other people. I got to talk to their clients and suppliers. So I haven't looked back. BNI has been the number one generating platform for my business. But I've had lean times out of it. Again, not everybody wants help. Sadly, not everybody wants help. They don't see the value in what you can offer because often businesses are undercapitalized. And I was chatting to somebody about 3 weeks ago when this coronavirus that we're in, what happens if your business didn't have income for 12 months? This was a middle-aged gentleman, probably in his late 50s, early 60s. I'm sunk. Okay, that's a concern to me. Okay, we're in really unusual territory. How do we get people the help that they need? Everybody needs help. And people say, oh yeah, I use my accountant for all my assistance in business. Accountants are only there to really help them from a financial point of view to meet tax office obligations. So if you're talking to your accountant, what sales and marketing advice have they given you? What team building stuff have they given you? What time management things have they helped you out with? Often the answer is different or is none of those areas. That's where I come in. I can be a great partnership between a business owner and accountant. I don't look at the numbers in your business. I look at different numbers. We focus on lead generation. We focus on conversion rates. We focus on average dollar sales. number of transactions and your profit margins. But the accountant does all the financial stuff. Your bookkeeper does all of that. We monitor those other things, turnover, but you need to know what your lead generation and your conversion rate is, because that then tells you how many customers you have. So it's about a process. How do we get one more customer, two more customers, 10 more customers? Because going back to marketing, you said 80% of your marketing fails. That's the reality. How do we get the 20% getting us where we need to be? And it's about testing and measuring. So you might have 10 different strategies of marketing. Eight of them are going to be crap, but 2 of them are going to be okay. And that's why I like BNI. BNI is a fabulous platform for generating new opportunities.
And once you get a new client, what are some of the things that you do to make that client feel special, feel welcome, feel part of Management Solutions?
I become a unreasonable partner in their business. I expect them to do better things in their business. And that's a challenge for most people because they think they're doing it really well. Okay, sometimes it's about just a phone call. How is everything going today, Brett? But between our coaching sessions, if I'm driving around, I often ring people. What's going on? Just was driving around, want to touch base with you. Occasionally I go and have drinks with my clients. We celebrate wins. It's about, and it's a term that's not very often used, critical non-essentials. Might be a gift basket at Christmas time. It might be going to go-karting with people, just to chill out and help understand what makes them tick at a different level. And some of it comes out in coaching sessions, but sometimes it comes out in just those friendly chit-chats. And we just delve in. Is everything okay? Because not everything's okay in business.
Absolutely.
So it's just a matter of being there when they need the support that they need. And everybody has different needs of support. Some people, and I've had a client for 18 months, we've now parted company because he has changed the way he does business. He's gone into semi-retirement, employed a general manager. He didn't do stuff in his business day in, day out for the best part of 5 months. He was focused on the in bit of the business. But we're having conversations. And then he sat down and says, I need to change one thing about my staff. I said, well, let's just have a team meeting. And he gave the manufacturer gave the staff a pad, calculator, and a pen. And he thought he was being taken advantage of by his staff, and the staff thought they were being taken advantage by the boss. So there was a different level of communication. Once we did some sums on paper with the team, they were all asking for a pay rise. They thought that they were working as a 9 out of 10. Reality is most employees are considerably lower than their own expectation, but it's about the communication. So they were all after a pay rise. We did the numbers, but we'd spoken to the owner beforehand. What would that number look like for you to then start offering? And we did the numbers with the staff. He was being taken advantage of by people turning up late, taking breaks, cigarettes, going to the toilet, all on work time, to the tune of $50,000 over a course of 12 months. 10 staff, they all wanted a pay rise. If they all played by the business's rules, he was happy to give them the pay rise because he was going to make 40 or save 40,000 by them being more productive. So we just have to work on how we make these people more productive. So we don't want superstars in business. How do we get them from a 4 to a 5 or a 5 to a 6? So it's just little bits of improvement. If they're at a 10, we can't really make them any better, but there's always room for improvement. So I often talk to people and say, how do you think your staff are as a rating out of 10? Oh, they're a 7 or 8. And so we start asking questions. Often we then determine, the owner starts determining, oh, well, hang on, they can't meet their KPIs. Oh, well, maybe they're not a 7, maybe they're a 6. Oh, they turn up late, maybe they're not a 6, they're a 5. So how do we get the balance back? And sometimes, as Gary Vaynerchuk says, sometimes we've got to shoot a hostage. You might have to get rid of your best employee because they're not necessarily your best employee because they're creating a toxic culture. And small business is different when your team is doing better all of the time. And if the team... Go
on. I've said for a very long time, especially having come from the call center background, where you see the same people every day, where they become like your family. Negativity is like cancer in office environments. If you're surrounded by people that have just that little bit of negativity or even a lot, you'll be amazed at how quickly it infects the people around them, how it changes them, how it changes their motivation, how it changes their creativity, all those kinds of things. And the sooner that you can resolve that, the source of that negativity, whether that's through coaching or development or understanding their motivations or what might be happening in their personal life that's making them feel that way, and being able to offer some kind of assistance or support or guidance, versus if that's not possible, the sooner that person can find somewhere else to move on to, that they will feel more happy, more supported, or that you are able to move that person on, because they're never going to achieve the things that you need them to, the better that is for the business as well.
Sometimes we need them to be successful somewhere else. Sorry. And they're not bad people. It's just we need to help them become successful somewhere else. And a lot of it is about education and communication. They don't know unless somebody gives them feedback. And most people hate feedback. But we use different tools to provide that feedback with relation to having conversation, ask questions to find out what things are going on in that person's world. And that might be your best staff member, you might be your worst staff member. Why are they thinking like that? How can we help them?
That might be the greatest quote that I've heard in the last half a dozen or a dozen episodes of this podcast.
What, help them be successful somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we need them to be successful somewhere else. I think that's it works on every level. As a business owner, I'm sure anybody that's ever had staff understands how that feels, and as a staff member, you know what it feels like to feel trapped, to feel anything other than what you'd want to feel, which is successful. And sometimes it does take that getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of where you feel comfortable and lazy, in order to have the success you really want personally and professionally.
It's about understanding that maybe we haven't helped somebody well enough in their journey. And when I say that, from an owner's point of view, they're so wrapped up in their role within the business, but they don't see the challenges that are going on around them, and they don't know how to approach that. But if we make it about the employee doing everything right, or asking them what their position is on these sort of things, we can't understand. Okay, we need to listen to understand. Unfortunately, most people don't listen. They need to control everything. It's about helping get that balance right. Okay, it might be that this person's got fabulous traits. Unless we give them the appropriate feedback, we're not getting the message across. And sometimes we've got to strip it right back. How do we get them doing positive stuff? Unfortunately, everybody thinks that we need to beat people over the head with a cricket ball bat, baseball bat, for them to comply. No, it's not about that. It's finding out what their psychological motivations are for doing things differently. Hang on, if we provide a system that needs to be followed, why aren't they following the system? Is it because we haven't conveyed it? And we talk about communication, and there's a phrase that I use. True communication is the response you receive. So if the outcome you receive is different from the way you've conveyed it, guess what? unfortunately, you haven't conveyed the message very well. So when we have a conversation with people, often it's about people hear things differently. The two people can be in the same room and hear vastly different messages from what's being conveyed. So we have that, okay, what did you understand about my conversation? And you then get their interpretation of what's been said. So hang on, well, that didn't go as well as I wanted it to go. Maybe I've got to ask it in a different way. Okay, what is the end outcome that we need? Why aren't we getting it? And it's about making us the wrong person and giving somebody an opportunity to make some changes.
Absolutely. It's something that I've said throughout most of my career, especially the back 10 years or so in corporate life, was around coaching and learning and development. And so saying to, one of the things that I sort of started saying probably towards the last couple of years especially was, if somebody's having trouble understanding what you're asking them, it's because you're not doing a good enough job communicating that.
Mm-hmm.
It's got nothing to do with them or their ability. It's how you're asking it, it's how you're putting it out there. And you need to think about what it is that you want or need from this person and how you can deliver it in a way that they best understand those instructions and then take action.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's really, really powerful. Unfortunately, most people choose to blame somebody else for their situation. And that's what we class a below the line response, and blaming people, making excuses, or showing a level of denial about things. Playing the victim game doesn't help anybody. Okay, can we do it better? That's about being responsible and taking ownership of a situation and doing it with a level of accountability. So that's playing above the line, and people get results rather than no results, or reasons for no results being below the line. And I use this tool very frequently in my coaching sessions. If it doesn't come up on a daily basis, that would be an unusual day. And I use it all of the time. Don't I, Brett?
Yes. So when you...
And it's about... Go on.
No, go ahead.
And it's about utilising the tool with compassion. How do we get... And again, I have to do it all the time. That's why I spend a lot of time listening, is trying to understand things from a business owner's point of view as to why they're having the challenges they're having.
And when you think back to, I guess, the early days of the business and some of the market, I mean, not necessarily even the early days, over the course of having the business, when you think about some of the advertising or marketing that you've done and you thought, doing this is like a sure thing, I'm definitely going to get a result from this. Mm-hmm. It just absolutely bombed. What's an example of that for you look like?
Well, maybe a letter run where you might have sent out addressed mail to business owners, and you might send 200 and you might get a response rate of 1. And so you wasted time and effort and things like that. Not every piece of marketing does what you needed to do. It's about having, again, we talked yesterday, it's about building relationships, and you can't necessarily build a relationship at the first point of conversation. It's over a journey. It's helping people understand that there is a better way to do things. So marketing is just an opportunity to get in front of something, but it's about proactivity. To do 200 letters, which I did in the early days, on a regular basis, it might have taken 3 or 4 hours worth of process. Mining the information, getting the letters prepared, going to post them, following up, because people don't automatically ring you. So you've got to have all of the information. So it's when I was ringing people that I was actually starting to cut through the challenge, the marketing process is by trying to listen to what their situation was. So the letter was just a conduit. The phone conversation actually made the difference. But people don't proactively take a piece of marketing and jump at the opportunity. So a lot of people do flyers, letterbox drops. Letterbox drops, most people, junk mail goes from the letterbox to the rubbish bin. Most people. Some people who have got nothing to do with their day spend time reading them, whether that be a JB Hi-Fi catalogue or a Harvey Norman, Coles, Woolworths, or even the local lawnmower putting stuff in the letterbox. Not everybody has a need right now when that piece of junk mail goes in the letterbox. It's about building a relationship with people. And it may be 6 or 12 months before people see the opportunity that they can start working with me. And that's about touching base with. So it's building up a sales funnel that converts over a period of time.
Absolutely. And what about the opposite? What about something that you did in the business to drum up business, but you thought, look, if this works, it'd just be great, but you didn't have very high expectations and it exceeded?
Nothing. Well, as I say, B&I has been the real driver to my business because you can talk to people. That is the best thing, is you're just building a relationship week in, week out. Some people I've known for a number of years before they've actually taken my services. And that's okay, because they weren't right to do it back when it was. And in this current climate, I've got people saying, I need you now more than ever before. I can't afford you, but I need you now.
Yep.
So it's about, what do we need to do now to position your business in the next 2 or 3 months down the track when things become a little bit better? I'm talking to people who have got businesses that have closed. So they cannot, well, they can market, but they can't provide their product or service because the government told them to close. But what can they do in the meantime until when they do reopen? And some of that is building systems in their business, building relationships with suppliers and customers. Okay, you may not be able to do, a massage therapist, you can't do treatments, but you can still talk to your customers, and over that period of time, you just strengthen those relationships. But unfortunately, most people have a need for money in their business today. So they ring up somebody or they do a quote of somebody to somebody, and they need that business today. Business doesn't work like that. It's a long game. Unfortunately, most people need, and that's why I say often businesses are way undercapitalized.
So what has been the most valuable tool that you've used that's free, either to promote or create for management solutions?
It's been free. Probably knowledge, as in books, and you can get books at the local library. You can go and sit in a bookshop and you can read, and that's probably the thing that I did most very early in the piece, but I'm still doing, but I buy the books now because I want really specific books, so I get them off Amazon or book depository, things like that, because they often aren't in the local bookshops. I like books because I can put sticky notes on them, I can jot on them, I can dog ear corners and things like that, getting more knowledge. And as I say, every time I'm talking to a client, I'm learning about what's going on in their business, and I utilize that information back in other people's businesses because I don't have all the answers. But if I know somebody else is using something that's working really well or how they go about doing things, I'm not the smartest tool in the tool shed. I know that there's a lot of resources out there. It's about harnessing the knowledge and getting them to the right people at the right time.
And when it comes to your own business, what's the next big thing for you?
Well, I love what I'm doing, but at some point, I'm coming up 56 this year. Semi-retirement is on my radar, and I'm just about at the stage where I am financially independent. So where my investments are almost taking care of my expenditure. And don't get me wrong, I'm heavily invested. Okay, the current situation's not being kind, but I'm still in there. The market is recovering a little bit, but I still will do what I'm doing to a certain degree because I know people need help. And the beauty about this is I can be wherever and I can still hold people accountable. I could be traveling, whether it be local or overseas. I can still help people because of technology. It's amazing what you can get out of people on a telephone call. So I don't need to see people. I need to see documentation when I ask for it. And we just hold people accountable to their needs and requirements. And this is not about me, it's all about the client. How can I service the client better? And that's why I say getting more knowledge means I can service a client better and be firmer on some of those benchmarks. Hey, Brett?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. You know, I can attest to that. We had a phone meeting yesterday and then emailed you 2 or 3 different emails with information that you needed from me as well. And you know, through, you know, the miracle of the internet and the mobile phone, where you're able to hold me accountable and keep me and my business moving forward.
Mm-hmm. No, as I say, this is all about how I can service other people. And if I can taper down to a semi-retirement but still servicing clients, that's a win for all parties.
And just in closing, what do you think the best advice that you can give the Paperclip podcast listening or watching audience is?
What I see often is business owners who are reactive. The key factor in business is about proactivity. And when I say proactivity, the only way to build a relationship with people is via a conversation. Okay, some of that can be done via Facebook or LinkedIn and things like that, but get on the phone. Don't send text message, don't send emails, get on the phone and actually talk to people. It's amazing what you can find out when you talk to people. And it's a different way to go about communicating. And unfortunately, the younger people are really good at text messages and everybody gets 20, 30, 50 texts a day. But how many, or emails, how many just don't get looked at? Whereas a conversation is really powerful. And it's about how you can help other people. Because a learned colleague of mine, Zig Ziglar, you get more of what you want when other people get more of what they want, and you're helping them get more of what they want.
Good advice. Good advice on both levels from you about getting on the phone, and then obviously from Zig Ziglar as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if people want to learn more about you or get in touch with you for your services, the best way they can do that is to get on the phone and give you a call on 0418 360 075.
And please leave a message. I do respond to every message I get.
Perfect.
Please ring me and leave a message. If I don't get a message, because often I'm in meetings with clients, I don't answer my phone. It's on silent all of the time. Leave a message and I will ring you back. Then we can start the conversation.
And at the end of every show, I like to close with a quote. I picked this one specifically for you, Peter, because after spending a bit of time working with you, I felt that this one was very reflective of the relationship that I have with you in particular. Mm-hmm. Jim Rohn said that successful people do what unsuccessful people are not willing to do. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better.
Mm-hmm. And that's about the education process. Unfortunately, and kids are the same, I wish this was easy. No, it only becomes easy when you get better. Love that quote.
So thank you, Peter, very much for being on the show today.
Pleasure was mine. Thank you for the opportunity, Brett.
And for everybody else, you've been listening to the Paperclip Podcast presented by BSDA. We have one clear goal: help you to become bigger. If you'd like to learn more about growing your business, head to bsda.com.au. Until next time, keep growing.